All right, after I organized the data into a frequency distribution of 5 classes with a class width of 9, and I got this histogram, this picture shows me a pattern, and the pattern is it looks like a bell-shaped curve, which means that the performance of my students in this class is a typical statistic course. My next step after I figure out there's a pattern going on in my class is I want to summarize the data. And what do I mean with that? Summarize the data. I want to take all of these 17 scores and somehow put it together into one single number that gives me an idea of what's going on with the performance of my students. For example, one way to summarize data is called measures of central tendency, which means let's find the middle. Okay, let's find what is in the center of the data. Now, why are we interested in the middle, the center of the data? Because that's what we consider normal, common, typical. So for example, I want to find out what was the typical score or grade in test number 1 of my students. And there are 3 ways to find that number, that middle. Okay, one of them is called the mean. Add all the numbers and divide by how many you have. You can see the mean in this test was 74. And basically that will be right here in the middle of the histogram. You can see that's where the highest bar is. If I would connect the bars with a smooth bell-shaped curve, that's where the belly is. So the belly, the highest bar, is where you're going to find the mean. That's where most of the data is located. Okay. The median, put the numbers in order and find the number in the middle of the list. Okay, in that case, it's also 74. That's this number right here that I label as Q2, which in another video I'm going to explain. Q2 and the median is the same thing. And the third way to find the middle is called the mode. And the mode is the data that is repeated the most. In this case, 74 was the score repeated the most in the test. Now that I know what is the measures of central tendency, if someone asks me or asks you, hey, how do you do in Mr. Diaz test 1, or what do you expect to get in Mr. Diaz test? You can now tell them, because the typical grade is 74, you can say, well, I expect to get a 74 because that's the common grade in Mr. Diaz test. All right.